Coming to you from Israel in the Galilee. Today I think is the 23rd of August, 7:39 in the morning, and the temperature in the not so holy land is now 80 degrees and a high of 95. Ouch. So it's going to be HOT here today. Okay, so today we're going to cover what's going on with oil. Okay, that's the basic issue today, is what's up with the oil. And Iran is threatening the Gulf states with attacks on their oil infrastructure if they assist the United States with their economic warfare against them, which they've said is a declaration of war against Iran and all the other countries that would be affected, I guess, with the sanctions. I'm not sure what all they meant. They threatened Bulgaria. Bulgaria got America to take 2 refueling tankers out of there. And we'll go through all the different things. There's quite a few things going on. A lot of people, not a lot, but actually there's a bunch of people saying that, maybe not even a bunch, that Trump is going to do an attack on our friends in Iran. And I'm not so sure. And I think we're under attack. I think I'm going to have to contact YouTube on the live chat, because there's like nobody coming in here. And if any of you are in here and you have, no, people are coming in. Let me kind of explain something to you. Yesterday we were attacked. I don't want to talk about how we were attacked, but we were, okay? And we might get attacked again. So what I want to inform you guys of is this. If you have the premium YouTube, which probably a lot of you do, you pay approximately $10 a month, and although I think it's just gone up or something, but and you don't get the ads. It's called premium. If you have premium, you can contact YouTube. You go to YouTube Studio. Rather than go through everything, because you're going to have different computers, just use your AI and say, how do I get to chat or talk with YouTube support? And it's easy. And you get, you use Studio, YouTube Studio for it. And you'll need the name of the channel, and you'll need the name of the video. And then when you go to the chat, you cut and paste those in, and you tell them that Leonam probably doesn't even know there's something wrong with his broadcast. Maybe he does, but there's something wrong with the broadcast, and we suspect it's somebody in YouTube doing it, but please look into it. And they'll go into it with you, okay? Now, they're not going to like it when you say somebody at YouTube did it, and they want to make believe that's impossible. Believe me, that's where it comes from much of the time. So you go ahead and do that, and hopefully we catch this jackass, and they might fire him and they might prosecute him in prison. In the meantime, I will start working I'm going to think about how to do this. I might have to go to some people that have clout in Israel that will help me, and go to the government of Israel and say they're attacking me, and Zionist attitude that I have, and my dialogue is very Zionist, and it's a terrorist attack, and try to get the government to go after them. And the government will contact YouTube, and YouTube will freak out if they're contacted by the Israeli authorities regarding terrorist attack from within YouTube. Okay, they will go after this person. They will prosecute this person. Okay, all right. So we'll try to take this person down. I don't think that the people doing it are believers or witches or anything. I think they just retained by somebody to be uh, to do this hacking. All right, so if we work on this, uh, they could get in trouble big time, like prison. They could get sued. They get fired and never get another job, and that kind of. Okay, so we just got to try to get rid of them and pray. My heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I pray if anybody's trying to attack us, they get into big trouble. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay. So we had some nasty in here. For those of you that don't like old people, why don't you just pray that the Lord kill you before you get old? Is that it? Maybe that's a suggestion you might want to consider to see how stupid your position is. Okay. Boy, we have a lot of dirty laundry today. Okay. I'm going to put my post up here. Check for typos. I wish that we could, that enough money would come in for me to get into the podcasting and get the audience expanded by triple, or get people to do the translations and post in their own account. I wish that would happen, but a few people are occasionally getting the video up, but I don't know. It would require hiring at least one person. Maybe I could do it on. I'd have to pay somebody to do it in Israel, 3,000-4,000 US dollars a month, and I could find somebody. Probably at 3,000, I could do it, and have the stuff posted all over in different places, so we're not dependent on any one place, and we wouldn't put links to YouTube. We would just download, or actually, I could just copy the video to a podcast at the same time I broadcast. So we don't have any issues. Okay, I'm gonna do some praise, and then we'll move on. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay. And let's see if we have any prayer requests today. I honestly don't remember. I don't think so. Let's see. No, that's not. That's something else. All right. Good. So let's get into the news. This guy, Ibrahim Rezayel, member of the Iranian Parliament's National Security Committee, in a threat to Qatar, Kuwait, and the UAE. That's a pretty good sized threat. So, who did he leave out? Oman and Bahrain. It has been reported that fighter jets and refueling aircraft of the American enemy are stationed at airports in Qatar, Kuwait, and UAE, and other countries. Oh, so he's gonna get Jordan and Saudi and all of them. Okay, so it's all of them. They have turned their home into a fortified base for the enemy, meaning America. Let them not come with complaints later. In other words, they're saying, when we blow you up, don't complain. We're warning you now. And Bulgaria got warned, and they took heed and got America to take their 2 refueling tankers out of there. Now this is really interesting. I mean, this is, as far as interesting goes, this is like a 9 on a 10 scale. The UAE, the installation of metal cages on oil and gas reservoirs in Abu Dhabi has been completed. Now I got to do some spiritual warfare. We got a Weisenheimer again. Doesn't learn lesson, but we'll teach a lesson. Okay. So what are they doing? This has been done on tanks. Putin did it on tanks. I think was the first one we saw. What they do is, let's say you have a building, and the building that has something to do with oil. It doesn't matter what. It could be a storage. It could be refinery. It could be, equipment for pipeline monitoring, anything. So what you do is you take steel posts, and you probably want them to get a good 6 or 10 feet high, okay, and or maybe not even, maybe 5 feet, or you put them up, and they're hard steel, and then you have this kind of a pattern on the top with hard steel, okay, not like schoolyard fencing, like really hard, hard, right? and you put that there so if they're going to fly a drone at you, the drone can't, it's going to come down on the target, okay? Mind you, they're shooting at the drone this whole time too to take it down. So the drone's going to come down on the target, but it can't come down on the target because this grid of pretty heavy metal. I'm sure that this thing is going to be a quarter inch or 3/8 of metal. Okay, it's going to be serious. It could be a half inch. You know, the drone comes down and hits it. It's going to explode when it hits it or break up. It's not going to be able to pass through it. Even a quarter inch would probably stop it from just passing through it. It would get destroyed. But maybe they're using a half inch. That would be serious. You know, they also could use a solid cover. They don't have to have it perforated. They could have a solid cover on it. And they could put a camouflage net over that metal cover so that the enemy thinks it's the tank, the oil tank, or a refinery, and then they hit it and find out they hit in there. They hit the metal. Can they fly horizontally and go in between the elevated metal protector and the roof of what they're trying to attack? Well, that would be pretty difficult because they would have to go to, if they went to straight horizontal, it could pass right through, go in one side and out the other. So it needs to hit the top or hit the wall. Okay? So they got a problem with that. Now, I don't know how they're protecting the walls of the buildings. I don't have all the details, but the big problem is they come down. Now, maybe I don't have it right. What I saw with Russia, when they put these things on the turrets of the tank, which is the most vulnerable place in a tank, you know, when you take side shots at a tank, it's pretty resistant. It's pretty hard to hit the turret of the tank because it sticks up pretty little, and you know it's not an easy shot. And when you come in on the side, it might not. It might have armor on the side. I don't know. But if you could get your ordnance to come straight down on the turret, that's the weakest part of the tank, and you could destroy the tank. Okay, but you got to come straight down at it. So they made weapons that they go up and then come straight down. I guess anti-tank missiles and stuff like that. So Putin was putting these screens up there, just over the turret. He wasn't worried about the other parts of the tank getting hit. So the missile would hit that mesh area, and it would detonate or destroy the missile. Okay. Now, if you're talking about a drone, that's not a missile this thick. It's this thick, and it's 6 feet long or something like that, and it has 180 pounds of explosives. Well, you might need to have a pretty substantial cover, metal piece up at the top to take care of a blast like that. But if you're talking 5 or 6 feet away from the roof of the building that's being attacked, and the explosion happens that far away, the damage is going to be minimal. It's going to be shrapnel and stuff like that. It's not going to be devastating damage like it's if it actually hit it. Um, I don't know how effective or ineffective these things are, and I expect they got 10 different varieties of them. They probably have some that are uh, made out of heavy metal. You might have an inch of steel up there, solid, or 2 inches of steel. You know, that kind of thing is really going to give an explosive a bad amount of time. Okay, that's hard for them. So I don't know exactly what they're doing, but it's designed to stop the drones from exploding on the roof of the structure. Now, can the drones hit the sides? I think somehow they probably could. Uh, Now, curious thing, Iran's been getting explosive, I guess the powder, you know, we could call it the TNT. It's not TNT, but we could say that, you know, the explosive powder from Russia in the Crimea Sea. So they're having some shortages. Now, when Iran threatened Bulgaria, they were showing them pictures of a plant. Now, a plant is a factory, an underground missile manufacturing plant. It's probably real. They probably have more than one. So while they were not being attacked, because intermittently America and Israel would stop the attacks for weeks and months, they probably were manufacturing missiles in wholesale quantities, you know, 3 shifts a day, 7 days a week, in these underground facilities. And they could be inside mountains, they could just be 150 feet underground, like you got a ramp, you go down, stuff like that. Maybe if it's a ramp you go down, maybe America could make big round ball bombs. You drop them and they roll down the ramp and get inside. But the problem with that is they probably go, you know, switchbacks, so it wouldn't go down very far. So that's a problem, and the Iranians are highly unlikely to just sit still while Trump takes them apart economically by putting crazy sanctions on other countries that are doing business or violating Trump's sanctions, uh, putting the sanctions on them too. Now, remember that China, a day or two ago, came out and said America could take those sanctions and go fly a kite with it. Oh, I got to talk about kites, but real kites. What's going on with Gaza? So they said we're not listening to this. It's in violation of international law. We're not paying attention to it. We're going to trade with Iran, and they went into full defiance against Trump. Full defiance. So I don't know. How bad it's going to be. Now, there's so few people in here now, they are doing warfare against us by not displaying this video. See, they're really going whole hard. What we need to do is... Oh, no, people are coming in. Sorry, no, it's fine. I didn't realize. My mistake. Okay, so... the kites, what's going on with kites? KITES, like go fly a kite, right? A kite. In Gaza, they're flying kites. They're getting them high up in the sky, and they got a ribbon hanging off the bottom of the kite that's supposed to be kilometers long. Now, these are not school children making kites and playing cute games with it, because you don't put a tail on it that goes kilometers. You might put a 15-foot tail or something, but not a 1,200-foot tail on a tank, on a kite. So they're flying them to penetrate Israel airspace. What they'll do is they'll put on the kite a small explosive, okay, or some poison or something, and they might put a little doll or a teddy bear on there that has an explosive, just enough to ruin someone's face, blind them, blow fingers off. And the idea would be that a child would fly, they'd fly it into Israel, it would land, and a child would find it and pick it up and blow himself up. I don't really know if you can put a stuffed animal or a doll on a kite. I have a feeling that that's not going to fly. So I don't know exactly what they're trying to do, but they're up to something nefarious, believe me. So the people living down there are insisting that the IDF destroy the mayors of the community are insisting that these devices be destroyed before they come into Israel. And the IDF is saying it's not really necessary. They're nothing. They're not going to hurt anybody. So this is a crazy situation. I personally think they should destroy them before they come into Israel. I don't know what's up with these things, but I don't trust it. Why would they do it? You know, there's a bad reason for it. Maybe they are of the impression that with a lot of ribbon they could hurt a plane. It would get sucked into the engine or something. I don't think so. I don't know anything. I don't know. Why would a plane fly by a kite and get sucked in? I have no idea. You know what they did in World War II when they made a beach landing someplace. Back in World War II, they would often use an amount of ships, like 1,000 ships. Okay, I'm not kidding. Or they would use, for a big landing, hundreds of ships. And the ships would be anchored offshore in various distances, not very far offshore, because the artillery on the beach would have already been destroyed, and they just docked close so the troops could come off with the equipment and themselves and do a beach landing. And they stayed there, and a lot of them, why did they stay there? Well, a lot of reasons. So the troops could leave, so they could protect the soldiers from any enemy landings through the ocean, so they can't bring an army in to kill the Allied army. So these ships would be there for quite a few days. So what they did is they took a small dirigible balloon thing, and they put steel cables on it, like a real, 1 or 2 inch steel cable, a big cable, to anchor the dirigible, and they put them at different heights, at different locations. And what they were trying to do with these things is stop an enemy aircraft, a fighter plane or a bomber, from flying in over the fleet and attacking. Because if they came in, they would have to worry about hitting these steel cables, because that would knock a wing off or break a fuselage open, or if the cockpit hit it, kill the pilot. I mean, these were big, like an elevator cable, big, thick, heavy steel cables. So if the enemy fighters were going to come in and attack the fleet at night, that would be the safest because they would be harder to hit. If they came in with a daylight attack, all the ships had anti-aircraft guns, 40 millimeters, they call them ACAC guns, and they would shoot at the plane. Oh, they had all kinds, with shrapnel. Others were shooting 50 caliber, 20 millimeter directly at the plane. And they had lots of these guns. So if a fighter plane or a bomber decided they were going to come in broad daylight, the guys down there, there would be an alarm. The guys would get on their guns and they would be putting thousands of rounds of ammo, literally thousands of rounds of ammo up in the air, and the planes wouldn't do too well, leaving out the cables on the balloons, right? So what would happen if they came in at night, they'd be much harder to hit because you'd have to put the flashlights on them. And that's pretty hard to do when the sucker's moving 180 miles an hour or 250 or something like that. So they're going to be way harder to hit, okay? You're not going to see them, you're not going to know how to lead them, but it's going to be easy to hit the boat because the boat's going to be shooting at them. They're going to see all the fireworks and lights and stuff like that. However, they would not see the iron cables, and they would crash into those. So it was really quite clever, okay? And it was effective. I mean, they'd be, pretty deadly for them to try to fly, in between over the boats and keep attacking, strafing or whatever. At night, they'd never see them. So now they're using new defenses, which is pretty good. Hang on a second. Okay, a prayer request just came in. Okay, we have a prayer request for HA, Hotel Alpha. Prayer request for HA, Hotel Alpha. For HA, we want to pray for healing, for stomach, and for more work. So it's a double prayer for HA, Hotel Alpha, for healing for the stomach and for more work. So this person needs more work. Not hard to understand. Okay. Let me look at our live stream real quick. I don't know if we on the air or not. I think we are. I don't know if we on the air. Yeah, we are. It's just I messed up over here. Okay, we're going to have to talk about oil. Let's get a price on oil now. The way I get it is, I'll tell you the easy way you want to get it. Oilprice.com. That's a pretty good place to get the price of the paper oil, not the actual trading. This is on paper. It's up slightly, not substantially. Nothing's gonna rock the boat on this. $87 for the WTI, which is like the American kind of sorta, and the European, the Brent, is 94. It's not, you know, it's not creeping down. Okay. Um, Now, the actual physical delivery today, not waiting for your option to come through, is higher. Okay. If the Iranians go through with their plot to counter Trump by attacking the Middle East Gulf states that make oil that are working with Trump, this could cause catastrophic spike in oil, especially if they hit the Saudi Arabia pipeline that's being used now to move a lot of oil. If you take the Red Sea and you combine it with the Persian Gulf, you get no more than about a third of the world's oil supply. That's it. But it can't spike because of fear. Okay. People are going to keep paying more for oil by the hour because they need oil to stay in business. And they're going to be scared if they don't buy it at 115, it's going to be 150. If they don't buy it at 150, it'll be at 200, and so it goes. The Somali pirates hijacked an oil tanker off of Yemen in their latest attack. I don't know what they're going to do with the oil. Anybody that buys it is going to have a problem, unless maybe some radical Muslim state buys it. I don't know. No deal has been reached in the U.S.-Canada trade talks. And a 50% tariff is going to take effect on Canada. So Trump is putting a 50% tax on Canada. Mind you, Canada is a relatively large producer of oil. Okay? Canada said they would reciprocate and put 50% tariff on American products going to Canada. Believe it or not, they're not going to tell you this, but I will. This might actually reduce the prices of food items that go to Canada from America because they're going to lose a big market, and they're going to have their production is geared up for the Canadian market to be workable. Now the Canadian market's not workable, so they're going to have to sell it to the American market, and prices will come down some, noticeably probably, on the items that are moving into Canada with volume. Now, at 50% tariff. Okay, I don't know. Let's just say you were sending, widgets. That's what they teach you in business school, a widget, because it doesn't really matter what it is. And the widget costs $10, and now it costs $15. Well, the Canadian manufacturers have a tremendous advantage now of coming in at a lower price and getting the business, so it's not going to work too good. And also, if it's not being manufactured in Canada, they could get it from another country, right? At a lower price. When we get into prophecy with the daughter of Babylon gets attacked on all sides. What does that mean? Well, let's break it down. It's really not very difficult. The Gulf of America / Mexico, whatever you want to call it. We'll call it Gulf of America out of respect to Trump, okay? So we'll call it Gulf of America. The Pacific Coast, we know what that is, Washington, Oregon, California. The East Coast, which is a number of states all the way down to Florida. And how about the northern border? Well, they'll be coming in from Canada. Canada's not going to raise arms and go after America. I mean, that's ridiculous, okay? The governments of Canada and America might get mad at each other, but okay, you try to imagine the Canadians getting conscripted into an army and coming on tanks and personnel carriers into America and start killing American men, women, and children, which is what goes on in Jeremiah 50:51. No, I don't think that's going to happen. Are we going to go in there and kill Canadian men, women, and children? Of course not. I don't think so. Is another country going to come into Canada and do it? Yes. Is it possible that they come in through Alaska and then into Canada? Highly likely. Who could come in across the Bering Straits into Alaska? Well, I think it's about 40 miles, 40 something, 42, or I don't know, 45. Cross that. And remember, in the winter, sometimes that freezes so heavily that you could drive across it. I don't know if you could take an 80,000-pound tank across it. And I don't know if any general would want to march an army across ice like that. But maybe they would. And who could it be that could access that through Russia? Well, let's see here, Pilgrim. We got North Korea, we got China, and we got Russia. Oh, they go into Alaska, drop down into Canada, make nice with Canada, talk nice to Canada, don't attack the Canadian citizens and go into the daughter of Babylon. Canadians are not Americans. Canada never did the things that America did. They're not going to get the same punishment, okay? Canada is going to be one of the nations that gets destroyed in Jeremiah 30:11, in Jeremiah 46, verse 28. Or is it Jeremiah 28? No, it's 46. That's, you got to accept that's going to be different. But are the believers and the Israelites in Canada going to be leaving at about the same time as America? Well, I would guess so. Maybe not so, but I would think so. Okay. So we're seeing more things pointing. Now, we're looking at two things these days. We're looking at Zechariah 12, well, along with Malachi 3. And we're looking at um, the Jeremiah 50:51, along with Isaiah 47, destruction of the daughter of Babylon, Star Spangled Banner, okay, America. So we're looking at both these things, okay? And we're also paying close attention to the destruction of Iran, Elam, and parts of Yemen, or Yemen. Elam, Iran, Edom, Yemen. Both of them will be busted out. Okay, the U.S. Secretary of Energy. On Tuesday, the U.S. military helped move more than 15 million barrels of oil and petroleum products through the Strait of Hormuz, together with the oil transported via pipelines. The total volume of oil and its products leaving the region is approaching 20 million barrels. Now, let's run some statistics. First of all, do we think Trump is lying? I don't really think so. I think this is real. They've destroyed the Iranian radar and their capability to watch for this, with ships going in down on the southern side of the Persian Gulf. I think they've taken care of that, okay? So they're probably real. The Persian Gulf, at best case, is 25% of the oil, and the oil that the world, all the countries in the world use every day, is 100 million barrels. Okay? So if Trump could move 20 million barrels, 100 million barrels, best case 25 million, is what Iran is shutting off. So that would mean that Trump is filling the deficit nicely. Okay? Now, what you need to understand is this is what Trump is saying. They weren't very clear. I'm not saying Trump wasn't clear. The media is not clear. This is oil leaving the Gulf for the world. So this is the oil-producing countries selling oil and shipping it out of the Persian Gulf, okay? So they're taking up the slack. And I would think it's probably real. A big tanker is 3 million barrels. So he's talking 6-7 tankers. That's within the realm of reality, really is. If they're big tankers, And the the Iranian blockade is not holding up so well. Now, if you want to oppose me and say, no, this is Trump lying, and I don't know what to tell you. I don't think he's lying. I think this is something the United States Navy admirals came up with, and they're not morons, and they came up with, a way to get this done, and it's working. I think it's real. Okay? It has a limit as to how much it's going to go, they can get this way, but it's moving. Now, the pipeline, that, of course, is a different matter altogether. The average over the past 7 days for the volume of oil exiting through the Strait of Hormuz, the Persian Gulf, and more than 8 million barrels per day. Okay. Now, is that a significant hit? Yeah, because best case, the Persian Gulf is worth 25% of the oil use, which is 100 million barrels a day. So 25, million barrels would be the most that's being disabled at this point. And if they're averaging 8, they're taking a nice bite out of it. But it's still not a good thing. So what Iran is going to do is they're not going to try to put a better blockade on because they don't have any real warships. They got go fast boats and they got anti-ship missiles. So if they know that there's a ship traveling through the southern side of the Persian Gulf, the side furthest away from them, going to Kuwait or Bahrain or wherever, UAE, hey, so what? They got to get a radar lock on the thing. Okay? And as soon as they turn their radar on, if they got any left, which I don't think they do, they had a lot of radar right on the coastline, but I think it's by the Straits of Hormuz. I don't think it's alive anymore. I think that radar has rigor mortis and it's buried in the ground. It's dead. It got blown up. So, there's no radar lock. So it's one thing, there's ships going through, but so what? What are you going to do? Shoot a missile every 15 seconds and hope to hit it? You can't do much. So if they do have any radar and they turn it on and they start tracking, well, what Trump's going to do, I'm rather certain, is the Air Force is going to fire these anti-radar missiles that are going to lock on the radar path and follow it. And once they lock onto the radar path, they got the coordinates. Even if they shut the radar off, in perhaps seconds, the missile's going to be knock, knock, boom, and blow it up. Okay? So the Americans are getting more and more better at this. Okay? But what the Iranians are likely going to do is attack oil refineries, oil storage tanks, oil wells, pipelines, ports and piers where they offload the oil, and maybe electrical grid and water desalinators. The Iranians are not going to sit still and let this just happen. Okay? They're going to push, and they're going to push hard. So the U.S. Navy is, let there be no doubt, thanks to the U.S. Navy, oil continues to flow through the Straits of Hormuz. Yeah, not as much as they'd like, but I would say every few days they'll get better at it, the U.S. Navy. Before Operation Lion's Roar, about 23 million barrels per day, including Iranian oil, passed through Hormuz. So that makes sense, because 23 million barrels out of 100 million barrels daily consumption in the world is about 25%. So yeah, that makes sense. That would be the normal rain. But I don't know why Trump doesn't realize this, that these fanatical psychotics in Iran are going to just attack the oil and stop it from moving. The heck with the Persian Gulf. They're going to switch horses and just use their missiles, which they're good um, at attacking the oil industry in the Persian Gulf. And then Trump could control the Persian Gulf, but with what oil? There is no more oil. We blew it up. So now we're hearing Trump is talking about doing a heavy strike against Iran. Well, all this strike against Iran stuff doesn't accomplish anything unless Trump could knock out the missile cities that are heavily fortified in the sides of mountains and underground. There's 40 or 50 missile cities, perhaps. They built another 10 or 15 in recent months. We don't know. I don't know. And also mobile missile launchers that get hidden underground and in sides of mountains and other places. Then they bring them out and they fire the missile and then they run back undercover before they can get blown up. And they probably have 150, 200 of those. And they can make those. They can manufacture more and more of those along with more missiles. So I don't know if Trump's going to be doing a worthwhile attack. If he gets the electrical grid without getting the water desalinators, it might help things. Maybe. I don't know. I don't think Trump's in a mood to hit the water desalinators. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. But he might be in a mood to hit some of the electrical grid. I don't know. Uh, So it makes sense that Trump is probably going to be cooking up some sort of a preemptive attack on Iran, but I don't think he's capable of getting the missile cities. I don't think any of us are. I don't know what. Um, so on this weekend, mind you, it's Sunday today, which is the first day of the week in Israel. Everybody goes to work, the banks, the post office, everything's open. Our weekend would be more likely Friday and Saturday. Will the IDF shoot down the kites before they fly over Israel? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, they could shoot them down with the regular rifles. Just kites, a slow moving item. You just spray a few rounds in the kite, and then the fabric will rip open from the wind, and it'll crash, and you could break the frame. And it's not hard. I don't blame these people for being concerned about it. I would be too if I lived there. because it's likely they're trying to get the Israeli public used to the kites, and then some destructive thing could come, like they could put a fire on this tail of the kite that goes, 2,000 feet or something, or 1,000 feet, and it could cause a lot of problems in Israel with fire. So, got to watch this stuff. It's not innocent. It's devious. You gotta stop it. The oil inventories around the world are now at about a 50-year low. 50-year low. So it would be a perfect time for Iran to hit the oil refineries and storage tanks in the Persian Gulf area. And with the combining that with the low inventory of reserves, you could attain a $200 a barrel price without a tremendous amount of difficulty. That would be my opinion. And that would be catastrophic. People, I would say in America, if they got to pay $8 a gallon at the pump, you're in catastrophic territory. Okay, while Europeans are used to that, Israelis are not used to it in America, and it's going to be a catastrophe. And the Iranians are trying to make Trump lose the midterms. Now, it means Trump's political party loses the midterms. Trump doesn't run for office in the midterms, okay? Trump is not running for office, but it's something he does. It affects him because of Congress, and they could start not voting for all the stuff he wants to vote for, and they could start, passing laws and bothering him and stuff like that. Which is something Iran would love to see happen. And it's something that Trump doesn't want to see happen. Bulgaria took the threat from Iran seriously and asked America to remove their tanker planes. And America did. if Iran does hit the Gulf State oil, it really has to hit that Saudi pipeline that's moving a lot of oil every day. I have not seen or heard of anything in the line of people moving of anybody moving military equipment into the Middle East theater for a new attack on Iran. But I'll tell you something that is curious that a lot of people were talking about that I didn't believe, and now I'm starting to think it could be true. The Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier did not leave yet. And the George Washington aircraft carrier is in the Middle East theater, has been for 2 or 3 days. So this is unusual. Maybe they're waiting for the George Washington to be right where the Abraham Lincoln is, and then the Abraham Lincoln leaves, but I don't know. So this whole thing could have been a ploy, like, how does it work? Oh, people on the Abraham Lincoln are, they want to commit suicide, they haven't been home in a long time. The food's bad, the toilets are breaking. And we're bringing the George Washington in to relieve. And let the Abraham Lincoln crew go home. But maybe it was to bring a third aircraft carrier group in and really swarm down on Iran. Maybe America moved a lot of planes out of some of the countries they were keeping them in for 2 reasons. The threats from Iran and the potential of them getting hit. So, I mean, if we take the high number, you got 90 planes per carrier. That's 270 planes. Guys, that's a lot. If you want to just get a little conservative, you could probably drop down to, 230 combat planes. And that's still a lot. That's a lot. Remember, Israel has about 350 planes. If America gets over its head, Israel will kick in. The mistake Trump's going to make here, if he does it, is Iran will hit the Gulf states that make oil. And that will be a big problem for oil. And I don't think Israel and or America together have the capability of blowing up those missile cities. It's possible that if America deploys boots on the ground, special forces like with helicopters, they could access these missile cities and possibly do things to them to stop them from functioning. The easiest way to do that is the missile city has to have a door that opens and the missiles fire through the door. Okay, so the door could slide back, the door can tilt this way, unlikely. The door can tilt this way, unlikely. The door can tilt up like that, very possible. And I would think with a small amount of explosives, you could get those doors to not open. In other words, they go off their track. The other thing you could do is weld them shut. They go open it with blowtorches and just weld the doors. That would, they're not opening then. Israel has these concrete bombs. You put them in a tunnel entrance and they blow up and they look like a sponge or a styrofoam, but it's very hard concrete. So you completely fill up the tunnel entrance or exit with these things. And they're not so easy to get rid of. So they could be put into entrances and exits if they're open. The other thing the Americans could do to these blast doors that have to open is there's special torches, like an acetylene torch, but they use a different gas. And they're very, very penetrating. They can be used to burn through safes and stuff like that. They could take those down there and burn a hole in the blast doors. I mean, to keep it on an immature level, you could just drop 100 hand grenades down it once you have the opening, and you're going to create so much damage, Or just put a nice big 50-pounder or 100-pounder down there, and that'll be curtains for anybody in there because of the shrapnel and the percussive force of the blast. You could also drop magnesium explosives down there to cause fires. You can put toxic gas in there. Toxic gas would take them out. So maybe Trump's going to do that. and it might work. It has a high probability of working. Would the special forces guys get killed? Probably none of them would get killed. I would think if they were going to get killed, they would do it by accident themselves, kill themselves by accident, which they're probably going to be rather careful they don't do. I don't think anybody will get killed. What they'll do is they'll bring them in on helicopter, and they'll have, probably for each team, 6 or 8 jets flying over them all the time. That's a lot of jets, okay? And before the helicopter goes in, the jets are going to reconnoiter the area and blow up any soldiers they're aware of in the area. So it's possible that Iran digs a trench and hides soldiers in the trench waiting for the Americans to come. But that's a fairly Roger Rabbit harebrained idea, because the Americans will just get on the horn with the coordinates, and the jets will drop 6 or 8 bombs in the trench, and then the special forces just go about their business and continue the task. They could try something like that. It's pretty dumb, but they could try it. They'll have 8-10 warthogs that could strafe, and depending on what they're going to do, the American forces might only be there a half hour. Or maybe they're there for a longer period of time, an hour and a half, but I don't think it'd be that long. And then they're out. And they might not have 8 jets protecting them. They might have 16 jets. Probably will have some insane amount of jets protecting each special forces team. Flying overhead constantly with guns and bombs and missiles and rockets. They might have attack helicopters that are armored. And, all kinds of stuff. They have 2 or 3 of these helicopters with that Gatling gun in the front, with 50 cal or 20 millimeter, and some troops are coming at the special forces. Those helicopters just go, and they can carry quite a lot of ammunition on those helicopters. And they'll just perforate the soldiers. If they're using 20 millimeter with armor piercing, they're going to rip the tanks up, the armored personnel carriers up, and the soldiers dead. But you've got 40 to 50, and you might have 60 or 70. Rumors are that they have missile cities they never used, because nobody knows where they are. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if anymore that's the case, but that's what's been told years ago. I don't know if it still applies. So I think if you're going to take out 50 missile cities at the same time, you're talking thousands of special forces, and I don't think that there's that kind of capability, but maybe I'm wrong. Once the missile cities are disabled, then it's pretty easy to get the Iranians to fulfill prophecy in Elam and Jeremiah, and they just leave. You just blow up the electrical grid and the water desalinators are going to fail because they're going to be on generators and they're going to have reduced capacity and stuff, and then the people will leave. Um, and then the sword follows them, and that sounds very feasible, and that would be a monumental advance of prophecy for us. Hang on a minute. This is, hey, let's put this in a modern translation, okay? Jeremiah 49, verse 34. Let's in an ancient translation. Okay. I'll get it done in a minute. Give me. Hang on, I'm having trouble with this. Alright, let's see if we get this. Well, I'll get it. Okay, so we're in um, Jeremiah 49. Now remember, Jeremiah 49 comes just before what chapter? Let's see. 50. Destruction of the daughter of Babylon. Okay, does that mean something? Well, I would think so. Okay, verse 34. The word of Jehovah that came to Jeremiah the prophet concerning Elam in the beginning of the kingdom of Zedekiah, king of Judah. Thus says Jehovah of hosts, look, I am breaking the bow of Elam, the chief first of their physical strength. Okay. This is a raw translation. It's not smoothed into nice English, so it gives us the real meaning. The bow, this is simple to understand. Have you seen the Iranians running around with bows and arrows lately? No, they don't. An arrow is correctly referred to as a missile. Okay? So a missile could be an arrow, and an arrow could be a missile. So the missile launcher is the strength of Elam, Iran, of their might, is the bow, because that's what their navy is shot, except for go-fast boats. Their air force is finished. They got nothing. They got the launching, the mobile missile launchers and the Missile City missile launchers. Look, if you got 11 million missiles and you've got 150 missile launchers, you're weak compared to a guy that has 500,000 missiles with 500 missile launchers. It's the missile launchers that count a lot. Of course you need missiles, okay? So, thus says Jehovah of hosts, look, I am breaking the bow of Elam, the chief first of their physical strength, or the strength of their might. That's what they go by, their missile launchers, right? Right. Perfect fit. Okay, verse, that was 35, now we're on verse 36. And I will bring against Elam 4 winds from the 4 ends of the heavens, and I will scatter them toward all these winds, and there shall not be a nation where the driven out ones of Elam shall not come. So they're going to be driven into every nation in the world. So this has to be before Jeremiah 30:11, where God says he destroys all the nations he drove the Jews into over time. Okay, when that happens, that has to be the end. That's like the day of vengeance. Why? Because if it wasn't the end, like day of vengeance, the end of the age, then the Jews would keep getting driven into other places. So in order to make this happen to all the countries that the Jews were driven into, it has to be the end of this age, because in the next age the Jews aren't driven out of Israel or are driven out of any other countries, okay? So that's why it has to be that way, okay? But that's Jeremiah 30:11. That has to come after this, okay? Verse 37, and I will shatter Elam before their enemies. Oh, I don't have a lot of trouble believing that. and before those seeking their soul life, before their enemies and those that are trying to kill them. And I will bring evil upon them, the heat of my anger, declares Jehovah, and I will send the sword after them until I consumed them. Goodbye. Okay, so their enemies want to kill them. So do you think just maybe they were successful in rooting the Middle Eastern oil and spiking oil prices to $200, $300, $400 a barrel, and people were so angry at them they kill them? Yeah, I think so. Verse 38, and I will place my throne in Elam, and I will destroy from there king and princes, declares Jehovah. Now, when he puts his throne in there, it doesn't mean Jehovah's moving to Elam, Iran, and starting to put his throne in there. It means he's judging them. Solomon had a throne he did the judgments from. That's copying God. God has a throne, and he's judging them. Well, he's seated on the throne. Okay? But why would God want to put himself there when he's destroying the place? He wouldn't. But it shall come to pass in the latter end of days that I will turn back the captivity of Elam, declares Jehovah. Well, you read that in Ezekiel 38:39, the Gog and Magog. Persia is what you read. Persia is in there. Okay? So when it says Persia, you could probably think of it as a brought back Persian Empire of some sort, right? You wouldn't do bad to think of it that way. Let's see if anything's in the chat that I need to deal with. No. I'm a little concerned about one of the homeless people from our ranks here. I haven't heard from this person in days. I don't know. I mean, this person has some health issues combined with that. I don't know what happened. Could be in a hospital and has no Wi-Fi or something. I don't know. I did suggest, because this person was in a part of America where there seems to be a large amount of homeless people, and the system is really overloaded, and it's pretty difficult to get any benefits. So I suggested that this person try going to a different city, county, or state where it might be easier to get assistance. And maybe this person took my advice, I don't know. If you talk to enough homeless people, you probably find people will tell you what's going on. See, in a lot of communities in the United States, if you're homeless, you call a certain number. I think it's 211. It's a universal number they have set up across America, but it rings in your local area. So if you're calling it from Ishkabibble, Tennessee, where there is no such place, it'll ring the office for the homeless people in Ishkabibble, Tennessee. Okay? And you tell them you're homeless, and in some cases they ask for a social security number, and then they book you a hotel or a motel. And this is going to vary from city to city, county to county, and state to state. Typically, you can check in at about 3 p.m. Okay? And then you've got to check out by 11 in the morning. And these things could vary. So from 11 to 3, you're on your own. You're walking around for 4 hours, right? So you can, then you call again, and you have no guarantee of getting the same hotel. You might get a different hotel. And then what they usually do is Friday you check in at 3 o'clock, and you don't have to leave until Monday morning at 11. Okay, so you're there Friday and Saturday and Sunday, so you have basically roughly 3 days of the week, not quite, but just about 3 days of the week you're stationary in one place. So you can, frequently these places have washers and dryers. You can, wash clothes. Or you could also just wash them in the sink or the bathtub and hang them up to dry or something. I don't know. You could possibly call Meals on Wheels if you're clever enough, and you're going to be stationary for 3 days. They might send you the meals for those 3 days, or they may not, because you're not stationary long enough. I don't know. You might be able to get it. If not, you could likely go to a grocery store and use EBT or something and get food. But I think if you try to cook the food in your hotel room and they caught on, they would probably throw you out. Now, so if you don't want to get thrown out, probably the best thing to do would be to just eat food out of the can, and out of the bag and that kind of thing. Not try to put a hot plate in there. That's what they're really afraid of, is a hot plate. If you manage to have a microwave oven and drag that around with you, which I doubt anybody does, and you use that, they may not care. I don't know. If they came into the room and they saw you were heating food up with a microwave oven, they may not care, but it depends. There's one thing where they're afraid of you burning the place down, and that would be a hot plate or something of that nature. And then the other thing they could be scared of is you making a mess on their carpets and their bed and all that with food. They might not want it for that reason. But now in some jurisdictions, if you can go to the hospital and see the social worker after the doctor treats you, you ask the doctor how you get a hold of the social worker in the hospital, and then you tell the social worker what's wrong with you, if you got serious things wrong with you, and they might tell the homeless people that you're not going to heal, and you need a month or 2 months or 3 months off the streets in the hospital, in the hotel. So they might book you for 30 to 90 days straight in a hotel. Okay? So you have no, uh, you have no interruptions. You don't have to leave. You just stay there. So you're in air conditioning or you're in heat. Okay? You're taking hot showers or baths every day. You're sleeping in a good bed. Okay? You're going to have a TV. You're more than likely going to have Wi Fi. Maybe yes, maybe no. Probably, but I don't know for sure. I guess it'll vary. Some places may try to charge you. I don't know. They probably will have a machine in the room that makes coffee and tea. So, in other words, it's a thing where you have a kettle. I don't know, there's different ways. They might have a kettle and you fill it with water, you put it on this thing, it heats the water. In which case, then you could make soup and ramen noodles and stuff like that in the room. Um, you also could make other kinds of food, if they have that. Some of them are going to have a coffee machine where you're not being able to do that. If you were being put in one of these places for 2 or 3 months, you might be able to go find a used microwave oven that works real cheap and ask the hotel first if you put a microwave in there to heat things up, are they going to get mad at you? And if they say, no, we don't care about a microwave, you're okay. If they say, yeah, you can't do it, then you can't do it, So, uh, so that's why I suggested trying a different jurisdiction. Because if, let's say, you're in Atlanta, Georgia, and there's a big homeless problem there, or Miami or something, well, they just don't have the funds to send everybody, into a hotel. So what's really going on is they want the people that can't get into the hotels to leave their jurisdiction and go somewhere else. So the thing is, maybe just try going somewhere else, and you might, you might get better fortune that way. You could take buses are usually not that expensive. I don't think you'd have to go more than a few hundred miles at most. If you're in Florida, let's say, and you're dealing with Miami and Fort Lauderdale are just loaded up, you can't get any kind of housing there. You might want to go try Gainesville or try, Titus or Beach or whatever the name of that beach town is, or try, Destin, which is a very wealthy area on the Gulf Coast, or Pensacola, or even maybe Jacksonville, or Jacksonville Beach, which is a suburb of Jacksonville. And, go to these places, and I wouldn't necessarily go there. What I would try to do is call them. But the problem with calling them is this 211 number, I think that's what it is. It's a special thing they set up, and it's going to look where the caller is, and they're going to connect you to somebody in the welfare system of that city or county. So you might not be able to test it. So if you're in Atlanta and you were trying to test Pensacola or Florida, you probably couldn't do it. You'd have to actually try going down there. So that's why it might pay to talk to people that are homeless, and they might know where to go, you know. The homeless people in these areas, they don't suffer very much being out of the facility for 11 in the morning and coming back at 3. If it's raining, they gotta go get shelter someplace, or snowing, or really cold. So it's probably much wiser to not be in a place where you have cold temperature or rain and snow. A lot of that, you wouldn't want to be there. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm concerned about this person, and we'll see what happens. Other things I've been looking into is, what if you want to leave your jurisdiction now? Where you now, I'm not talking home, I'm talking your country. You want to get out of your country because it's just become too expensive, too unbearable. If you're a retired person, I can speak to that. If you're a person that makes a living digitally on the internet, I could speak to that. If you're not in those two categories, I don't know if there's a good solution, and I'll develop this with you. Okay, so where is currently the most civilized place to live, where the food is good, the weather is good, the climate is good, and the healthcare can be good, and the food and all of that? Cambodia. Yeah. Realistically, what would it cost you to live in Cambodia? Probably a month. If you're really, really, really a tightwad and you don't mind living in a poor community where the people live, you might get by on 600 or 800 a month. But I would say 1,000, 1,200 would be realistic. And what would that include? That would include your apartment. You might be able to get a home, but you'd pay more. Here's the problem with expats. They move to a community. Now, where are the other places where it's cheap to live? Okay, where all the other factors are good. Okay, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, and of course Cambodia. Now, I'm talking about where you're going to find a reasonable amount of English speakers, where you're going to have a relatively mild climate, which might mean warm. But warm doesn't mean the same thing as going to Alaska. Okay? It's not the same thing. Okay? I live in a rather warm climate. Okay? And it's not that bad. Except the winter, but our winter's not freezing. It's far from freezing. In the middle of the night, on the worst days in the winter where I am, it'll be 40 degrees, 39 degrees, you know. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 days it'll go down to 33, or maybe not, 40, 44. Those are the cold nights, and during the day it'll probably hit 60 or low 60s. But if you're going to like Vietnam or Cambodia, you're not going to have nights where it's going to go below, in the middle of the night it'll be 60, 63, or even more, you know. Now, I've been in countries near the equator where I would go out at night to walk the dog, and I would be wearing shorts like this, and I'd be wearing a t-shirt like this. And I would see people out there wearing jackets, long pants, shoes, and a shirt with a nylon jacket zipped up. And I'd be in a t-shirt. Because they're used to 100-degree weather. And if it goes down to 75, they're cold. Goes down to 75, I'm in a t-shirt, So, what is wrong with Vietnam? Nothing. It's just expensive compared to some other jurisdictions. Is the food good in Vietnam? It is good in Vietnam. Okay, is it safe? If you're gonna go looking for trouble, probably not. What's trouble? I want drugs, I want prostitutes, stuff like that. Then you're gonna have trouble, okay? If you're not involved with looking for prostitutes, going to prostitute bars or any of that, you're just looking for, nice meals, shopping, going to the beach, you're okay. You're not going to have criminality problems. You start going bar hopping at 11:30 at night, you're going to start running into trouble probably. Maybe not, but why would you even want to do that? So if you're going to do Vietnam, you're probably going to be winding up at about, $1,500 to $2,500 a month. Why leave? Most of you can live on, if you're at look, you could live in America on, $2,000 a month. There's plenty of places in America you could get a nice 2-bedroom apartment in one of these apartment complexes where there's parking right by your door, and you got 1 or 2 or 3 swimming pools, jacuzzis, a gym. It's safe, and what are you going to pay? 7, 8, 900. If you want a 1-bedroom, you're probably going to pay around $750, and then you put your food on that and your other stuff. You're going to get by for about the same amount of money. What do you want to go to Vietnam for? Well, because people think it's better, and if you go to the street, people, and you want to eat a meal in the street, not in a sit-down restaurant with menus and a waiter, in Vietnam, you probably are going to get by for $1.50 to $3 a meal, depending what you want. It'll probably include some fish or chicken or something, right? Now, the same would be in Cambodia, but in Cambodia, let's say you're not going to live in a poor, you're going to pay maybe $500 a month rent, and you'll have a really nice 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom or a large 1-bedroom. You might be on the 15th or 25th floor of a building. It'll have more than 1 swimming pool probably, or maybe just 1. It'll have a gym, you'll have a balcony, you'll have air conditioning, you'll have a kitchen, you'll have furniture. It'll be nice. You might get maid service from the building once or twice a week. Seriously. Okay, where they'll come, and what are they going to do? They're going to clean, probably 2 women will come in, they'll clean your floor, they'll clean your big sliding balcony door window, make that look clean. They'll clean your kitchen, They'll clean your bathroom, your shower, you all that stuff, and mop your floors. You probably aren't going to have carpeting. You're going to have tile to keep the place cool. Okay. Um, your air conditioning, depending how much you use it, it could be $80 or $100 a month, and it could also be $35 or $40 if you're going to go there and stay locked up in your apartment after 11 o'clock in the morning until 6:30 at night, and you run the air conditioning all day. Then you got the wrong climate. Okay. You got the wrong climate. You're gonna take a month or 2 or 3 to get used to a tropical climate. It may take 3 months or even a little more. But once you get used to the tropical climate, um, you're probably gonna want to run the air conditioning at night, or you might want to run your fan at night. Instead. So your food will be dirt cheap. You'll pay $250 a month to eat very good. That's eating out a lot and supermarket. See, in a lot of these countries, they don't eat in the house too much because it's so cheap to eat outside. It's even cheaper than cooking for yourself, especially if you're just 1 or 2 people. You know. Thailand to me seems to be a stupid place to live. Thailand to me is a guy that's retired from a military someplace, got $3,000 or $4,000 a month pension, and has been divorced, and just wants to go down there and find a prostitute 25, 35 years younger than him that's going to move in with them. The women move in and they do the cooking and the cleaning along with prostitute duties. And these dingbat men are so stupid they think this is a good idea. Okay. Did they ever hear of, AIDS and, I mean, I don't know what these idiots do, but that seems to be the big attraction of Thailand, and it seems to be a dirty place because of that. And yeah, I wouldn't waste my time with that. And it's not a cheap place. It's cheap, but again, you're looking at 15 to 2,500 a month to live there. And the Philippines, that's another one that's cheap. If you go to the Philippines and you live in the back country, you're going to be real cheap. Like you might get a place for 200 a month. What are you going to do there, though? You don't speak Tagalog. What do what I mean? If you live in the larger cities there, you're going to pay more, but you could make it over there. But again, it has a lot of morons that go there that are men, and they want to get themselves a woman that's 20, 30, 40 years younger than them. And, it's just a moron's existence. The woman just wants the money from the guy to send home for the family because the culture is so weird that they send the women out to prostitute with the men, and send home money to support the father who may not work. He might have 2 or 3 daughters doing this prostitution run. And these women will do it. You'll see women that are 40, 45 years old going after guys that are 65, 70 years old, foreigners with a pension. See, where does this not really happen so much? Vietnam and Cambodia. Cambodia, very nice, friendly people and stuff like that. And it's a tropic climate. I think you got monkeys running around the streets over there. I don't know if, I mean, these are wild monkeys. I don't know if they bite. I've never heard of anybody getting killed by a monkey over there. You know, I mean, if you start playing with the thing, it might bite you and run away or something. They're like, you know, they're not big things. You know, if you have a dog and the monkey comes around, your dog is probably going to immediately think the best thing in the world right now is to kill this monkey. I would say practically every dog will think that he has a duty to kill the monkey to protect you or himself, and that could be a problem. A bad problem, you know. I don't advocate you leaving where you are, but some of you might have to go because you can't make it, okay? And if you got some sort of pension, there are options, but I'm talking Social Security money, uh, disability money, military pension money, or perhaps private retirement money. I'm not talking you're going to go there and get a job, because what's going to happen is you're not going to go there and get a job. You're not going to get working permit. It's not going to work. Okay? What about you're self-employed? That will work. Will they tax you in these countries? Most of them won't bother taxing you. They don't bother. They don't do it. It's not that they just don't bother doing it. They don't have the legal. There's no laws for it. I don't think you'll pay taxes if you're working digitally. In other words, the way it would word legally is if your income is coming in from outside the country, you don't pay taxes. So if you're in Cambodia and your money is coming in from people other than those that live in Cambodia, then you don't have to pay taxes. That's usually the way they'll do it. I haven't checked, but that's normally the case. Then you'll have to get, they might tell you need a working permit, but I think most of the people won't even bother with that because they're working digitally, and they'll just have the money not come to them in the bank in Cambodia. They'll have it come to them in a bank in another country, or PayPal, or I don't know. There's all kinds of ways. And a lot of these countries want you to get a visa every year, and they charge you like $300 for the visa. You go to a visa service, you give them your passport, and you wait about 10 days and you get your visa every year. They do all the work. There's not much to it. That's just a way for the government to make money. In some countries, they won't let you rent a house long term if you're not some sort of permanent resident and stuff like that. But the idea, like in Cambodia, would be to get a residency, not to just play games with them. So you get a 1-year residency every year. You don't have to leave the country and go back in, which Thailand says you to do. Now, there are people that live in these countries into their old age, like 85 and stuff like that. I don't know the wisdom of doing that. I don't know. Most of these countries, the people say the healthcare system is very good, better than what they're used to in Europe and America, I would say, or Australia. The doctors and the nurses are going to be polite and nice to you, and they've got modern treatments, and if they don't have it in Cambodia, then you'd have to go to Vietnam or Singapore or someplace and get it there. You can buy health insurance in these countries. Usually, depending on what's wrong with you, pre-existing conditions, how old you are, you might spend $1,000 a year to maybe $3,000, $4,000 a year, depending on what's going on. And they will take care of you. They don't have big deductibles and stuff, so they will take care of you if you needed knee or hip surgery, or you needed you came down with a dread disease or a bad disease, they would take care of you. They're pretty honest about their insurance. You have to talk to the expats living there, and they'll tell you which insurance companies to use. And a lot of people don't buy cars in these countries, they buy a motorbike. They're usually going to be hundreds of dollars, not thousands. Cheap, they come from China or they'll come from Japan, or cheap ones. Usually you're looking at, maybe 200cc, 150cc, something like that. And it's basically like riding a bicycle that's automated. It's not hard to learn how to drive one. You got to be careful, but you're in the city probably, or in a rural city, and you're not going fast. You're not on it. I wouldn't want to get on an interstate with anything less than 600 cc's. So I mean, I would, you're just running around 25, 30 miles an hour on the streets. It's not that big a deal. If you did fall, it would be much like falling off a bicycle. Not much would happen. Um, Maybe if you feel nervous, you put a helmet on. Uh, I mean, you could always get hit with another car or something like that. The other thing people do is they have what's called a tuk. They got those in different countries all around the world. It's basically a motorcycle that has a seat. I don't know how to describe it. It has seats like a passenger compartment on a motorcycle. There's a front seat and a back seat. The driver's on the left front, and he has handlebars for a motorcycle, but he's sitting on a bench. You can sit next to him on the bench and then in the back. So you could have one passenger in the front and maybe two in the back. So you get three people could fit in there, or you could put packages in there and stuff like that. And they're cheap. They're taxis. They have a roof. Um, you can use them in the rain. They usually have like a side curtain on the side, to stop the rain from hitting it. They're okay. I've been in them. They're a little bit weird if you've never been in one before. It's gonna look really weird to you, but I suppose if you're gonna run around having an accident with the thing, it's not such a great idea. But you're dealing with an environment where there's heavy motorcycles in the street, not a lot of cars. I'm gonna be back in a minute. So I did the research on these countries, and that's what I came up with. The lowest price where people are going to speak some English and they're going to be friendly and not hate you for being in their country. Poland, they don't like you. Oh, Poland, you're going to need like, 3,500 a month or something like that. But 3,000 maybe. But it's cheap, good food, good health care, safe. You don't have to worry about, as long as you're not going to be an idiot and run around chasing drugs and prostitutes, you're not going to have any criminal problems, okay? And so you could have a reasonable life there. Now, I'm not saying that you should do that. I'm just saying some of you might not be able to make it anymore. And, you're maybe facing being homeless where you still have an income, okay? You might have a disability of $1,500, $1,800 and you can't make it anymore. Well, this is an option you'd have to ask the Lord about, but it's an option. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not the Lord. You could ask him. Now, what about going to Israel? People are going to ask me about that. I'll tell you the cheapest things that I know of in Israel. There's an apartment building in Tiberias. Tiberias is not a nice place. It used to be a nice place. It is not a nice place. It has a lot of conveniences. If you go around Tiberias early in the morning and in daylight, it should be relatively okay. All right? But at night, I wouldn't do much in Tiberias. Okay? It used to be a nice place. It's not. You could get a furnished apartment that's about 220 square feet. Small. It doesn't have a real kitchen. It has a wall that has a sink. It'll have a hot plate, and it'll have a refrigerator and some cupboards. That's your kitchen. Okay? You can put a coffee maker in there. Some of them have that also. Then you'll have a sofa, which is a sofa bed. You'll have a TV. You'll have Wi-Fi that's lousy, but it'll work during the day when nobody's in the place. Not good Wi-Fi. And you'll have a balcony that's about the size of my chair. No, the balcony's about 5 feet long and about this wide. Let's say 2.5 feet wide, about 5 feet long. So it's a tiny balcony. You can get a table out there and you can put a barbecue thing there, right? A little, the little square thing, a hibachi they call it, or a small round one, and barbecue food out there. It got lousy security, but some security. It has parking and an elevator, and it's called King's Tower. I think you might be able to get one of these for $800 or $900 a month, maybe 1,000. I don't know how far they've gone up, but I don't believe you'll do better than 800, and probably not more than 1,000, someplace in there. Okay? Then they're going to want utility money. They might allow you a small amount of utilities or something like that. They have an air conditioning in there. It's a lousy. It's if you leave it on a lot, it'll keep the house cool. The bathroom is tiny, but look, you got a bathroom with a mirror, a sink, a shower, and a toilet. All right, it's small, but you got it. Okay, you don't have a gourmet kitchen, but you can have your 2-burner hot plate, or you can buy 2 of those, and then you got 4 burners. You have a small refrigerator, but it's probably about 5 feet high, and you could go shopping and fill it up, uh, and cook your own food. Um, Cooking on a hot plate is really not that bad at all. It's like having an electric stove. That's all. Um, and what else? You get a cell phone. You don't need a phone in the place. Okay. You could walk to the Shuk, which is an open air market, cheaper food, fresh food. It is about a 20 to 30-minute walk, depending how fast you are, each direction. So what you could do is get a shopping cart to push, or you can get a backpack and just go every 2 or 3 days and put stuff in your backpack and go to the Shuk and buy what you want. And then they have, closer than the Shuk, they have a small grocery store, and a large grocery store would be a good half-hour walk, at least. Banks are 10-minute walk. Post office 10 minutes. You can go to the post office with your debit card or your credit card and pull cash. You can go to the ATM machines with your debit credit card and pull cash. Now you might actually need, if it's a foreign card, you might actually need it to say MasterCard or Visa. It's all going to depend, okay? If it doesn't say MasterCard or Visa, it's most likely not going to work in Israel, okay? If you have one of those retirement debit cards from the government Social Security thing, that might not work in all the ATM machines, and it may not work in all the stores, but it'll work some of them. They have problems with that because they pay so little to the store for the transaction, or I don't understand the whole thing, but it works only some of the places, not all of them. If you went to, let's say, a Swiss bank and got a credit card from them, would it work in all the places? No, it wouldn't. It's not, but it'll work in enough places. You'll be able to get it done. If the ATMs don't take it, you could go into the banks with your passport and say you want to do a cash withdrawal off your credit card, and that will most likely work. But again, probably not with the government card for the Social Security or retirement. It probably won't work on that. But you'll be able to get by. And your food is going to be crazy. So I would say you would be on thin ice if you thought you could do it on $1,500 a month. I don't think you'd do it. If you did it on 2,000, I think you'd make it. But you wouldn't have much of a life because the food is so expensive here. For one person, I would think you probably are going to be at about $750, $800 a month with a tight budget on food. And that's a lot of pasta and a lot of cheap junk. I don't think you're going to. 800 you'd probably eat okay. So I would say, you probably, when you start with a cell phone and you're going to want to take a bus and go places, and you want to do this or that, you're going to need to buy something every now and then. $2,000 would be, that'd be cutting it close, and you're not living in a nice place. There's cockroaches there. I lived there for 3 months. You got cockroaches there. You got people that make noise there. They rent the apartments out by the day, and people get in there and get drunk and do karaoke. And you got idiots like that, okay? Now, if you're just going to go buy a regular apartment, that people that live here, the Israelis have, it's not going to be furnished. A furnished apartment is rare. Okay, so it's not going to be furnished, and that's a big problem right off the top. But you'd be looking at probably for a 2 bedroom. There's not a lot of 1 bedrooms around. There'd probably be a 2 bedroom. $1,200 a month for a not nice place. 1,000 for a dump, a real rundown dump. 1,600 for something middle of the road. Luxury. You're gonna spend a lot of money. You know, 2,000 a month, 1,800 a month for an apartment. Okay. If you go to the rural areas, you see, they're probably not going to want to rent it to you because you could only, you're going to have a 90-day visa, and they're not going to give you a 1-year lease and give you a low rent when you're on a 90-day visa because you may just leave and they're just out of luck. So it's very hard. And you're only here 90 days at a time. Then you got to get your visa renewed. And, if tourism is low, when you're from a big country, like a prosperous European country like Germany, Italy, the UK, or you're from Canada or America or Australia or something, you might be able to just go down there and say, my visa's running out in 2 weeks. Could I renew it? And they might let you renew it, but they're going to be a little bit concerned that you're working off the books. So if you're 70 years old, they're not going to be very concerned you're working off the books as they would be if you were 40 years old, And they might give it to you and they may not. It's a black box. It changes all the time. We don't know. If tourism is down and you've got money, you could show them 2 credit cards or something like that, or at least 1. And give them an idea where your money comes from. Like you say, I'm retired, I get, this pension and that pension, and stuff like that. Maybe they'll do it, or what you might have to do is leave the country. Say go to Poland, which is a lot of fun to go to. People like it there. I've never been, but everybody loves it. For 2 weeks and bang around over there, and then come back, and they might say, just look at your passport and just stamp it, here's another 90 days. They might send you to secondary and they're going to say, why'd you come back so soon? And you can tell them whatever you want to tell them, and they might say, okay. They might say, well, we'll give you a month this time, or we'll give you 2 weeks, or they might say, we'll give you 3 months. I don't know. So it's going to be hard as heck to find somebody to give you a 1-year lease on a place to live in Israel because you don't have any continuity of being here. Now, if you get a work visa, that has to be done by the person you're working for. You don't get it. They do it. So, could you get a work visa in Israel? Yeah, if you can perform some type of work where there's a shortage and the industry needs you, whatever that is, I have no idea. Okay? I don't know. I have no idea what that is, but it could exist, you know. And you can the employer would have to get it for you. I wouldn't be too optimistic about that. You don't speak the language, so right away it has to be working for some entity, some company that deals with foreigners, right? And they got to be able to convince the government of Israel that there's a shortage of people that can do what you do. And if you speak fluent English, you know, that helps a lot. Uh, and then they're going to probably try to pay you very little. Now, I mean, if you could do something that, you know, like you know how to make self-driving cars or something like that, you know, yeah, they probably get a job in one day, you know, but like you did that for Tesla for 2 3 years, and you go with a resume and you show them and you say you can check my references, yeah, they might hire you on the spot, but most people probably, you know, you're not gonna do well getting a job here. I wouldn't plan on it unless you could do something unusual. See, they're not allowed to give work visas out if you're just a secretary or you're a waiter or something like that. Now, if they open a Chinese restaurant and they're doing Mandarin Cantonese Chinese food, well, they need somebody from China or Taiwan or something that knows how to prepare and cook this kind of food. That's probably gonna fly. They're gonna be able to get away with that, you know. But if it was a regular restaurant, they wouldn't be able to get away with hiring somebody from another country for cooking, and you know, they don't want that. Okay, so getting a job would be rather hard to do. Uh, Being able to stay here would require you being able to convince the rabbis or the immigration department that you're Jewish, and that would be rather difficult unless you were getting rabbis attesting to it. And then if you're a believer and you do establish them, you can't convince them you're Jewish, then they're gonna want you to become a permanent resident, not a citizen. And that is doable if you've got the Jewish lineage tracing to your mother. It goes through the father, but in their minds, they've perverted it into the mother. It goes through the father, but you know. So that's what, you know, it's in Israel. So if you're having economic trouble making ends meet where you are, you're probably going to make your situation worse in Israel. You certainly, I don't think you're going to get it better. Like if you were in America and you were on a Social Security and you were in a big city, you might have to move to a lesser city and find some of these apartment complexes where you get, you know, 750, 800. You got a 2 bedroom, 1,200 square feet. It's a swimming pool community, you know. You, but you know, other things could be killing you, like all the expense of car insurance, registering cars, the smog and safety checks, whatever they got, right? And then the electricity could be very reasonable or it could be murderous depending where you are. And then food prices, and then what are you doing for health insurance? See, in Israel, I don't know what you would do for health insurance. You can't get the government insurance unless you're at least a permanent resident or you're on a work visa. You could be on a student visa, which means you have to attend the university full time. And you'd have to file for admission into the university and then get admitted, and then they would have to get the visa for you. Um, but, if they detected that you were just doing it as a way to stay in Israel, they would just very quickly, they'd call you in, and then they'd say, you're not going to class, you're not taking the tests, we're canceling your visa next semester, so you may as well prepare to leave. We're not renewing it. It was something like that. That's not going to work. They're not going to play games. You could find a ministry that would that gives out work visas. They call them volunteer visas. They can give it to you for up to 2 years, but they have to um, provide health insurance for you. It's more than health insurance. Health insurance and then other things. They would have to pay that for you because the government doesn't want to pick up the bill on that. And then they got to give you room and board and stuff like that. So it's an expense to this ministry. Now, it may not be a Christian ministry, probably wouldn't be. It'd probably be just, it could be a charity, a Jewish charity or a non-denominational charity. I don't know. People do get those. The government will give them to people, but they're pretty interested in what does your business do, and they'll probably visit you at your business. They want to see what it is you're actually doing in the flesh. Maybe not, but they probably would. And why you need these volunteers, and then they would do it. I mean, your reason could be, I want free work. Yeah, okay, we can understand that, but it's not free. You got to put them up. You got to get the health care for them and stuff. Yeah, I know that, but that's okay. Well, they might say, all right, go ahead. Free help is. They would think that's okay. That's a reason. They're not going to worry about that. You don't have to get people that can perform duties that nobody else can perform. They're not going to care about that. Oh. So yeah, you can do that, but kibbutzes do that. Kibbutzes bring volunteers over, and they'll have a guy at the kibbutz, and his sole job is taking care of these volunteers. They might have 15 at one time doing work, you know. So, that's, again, but that's temporary. The longest you could stay is 2 years. That's not very temporary, but then what do you do after 2 years? So Israel is not a good place. If you're having trouble making ends meet, coming to Israel is not a good way to go. If you have a generous pension, let's say your Social Security is, I don't know, $3,500 a month, $4,000 a month. There's people that probably get $7,000, $8,000. Let's say you were getting $3,500. Okay, would you be able to, U.S. dollars? Would you be able to go to Israel and manage living here on that? Yeah. Would you be very comfortable? No, you'd get by. You wouldn't be very comfortable, but you'd be getting by. If you were hungry, you'd have something to eat. You're not going to have good steak. You'd have some chicken, maybe. or chicken wings are very cheap, or you'd have some ground beef and stuff. You know, that sort of stuff. You're not going to be living high on the hog. You're not going to be going out to eat. Okay, you want to go out to eat per person. You're gonna be at $35-40 minimum. Then that means like McDonald's and stuff like that. You know, you're gonna be so you're not gonna be able to run around going out to eat. You know? Now, if you were dealing with a couple and had two pensions and they were getting $5,500 a month, could they come to Israel and have a good time? Like go to an Airbnb and rent it for a month at a time? Yes. Would they be able to rent a car? Well, probably, but that's expensive. And then would they be able to go tour Israel and go see all the different places and stay in hotels and stuff like that? They just about get by and do it. At about $5,500 a month. If they had savings, it'd be a different story. Yeah, they could do it, but it's not someplace you go on a budget. Where is if you couldn't make it in America, okay, could you do better in Cambodia? Yeah, even if you went, let's say you found a $750 a month apartment in a complex, okay, where it was safe and comfortable and you know that sort of stuff. Your food in America is probably going to cost you the same as your rent, from what I could tell. I'm hearing $10 for hamburger now, for a pound. You know, so you're probably going to be spending in a month. You're probably going to spend that. That puts you at about 1,500. Then you got utilities. So I don't know what you know. Maybe you got 150. That's 1,650. Then you got car insurance, 1,750. You got your car and your gas, so you probably pushes you to 2,000. And you know, now you don't have incidentals, and you know, I don't know what you're spending. I mean, you might be. I don't know. Your health insurance there. You get your Medicare, and then you got to buy the supplemental. Depending where you live, the supplemental might be 500 a month, 750. I hear 300, 200. I don't know what it's going to cost you. Probably say 300 or something. I don't know. Then you got all your deductibles, um, and that's you know you didn't go to the movies, you didn't do anything recreational, you didn't buy anything, you didn't go to the dry cleaners, you didn't eat out. We're not taking into account internet, cable TV, cell phone bills, um, you know, none of this. Okay, so you might not be able to make it. So you might be able to make it if you went to one of these other countries where it's nice and comfortable and safe to live. So you might be able to go down from, you know, 2,700 to 14, 15, 1,600, and then you're living good. You're eating better. You're very relaxed. You don't have to worry about looking at, you know, your bank. Am I going to make it this month? You know you're going to make it that month. You'll meet other people like yourself. Um, you know, things like that. It's better than trying to live in a car or winding up blowing it and getting evicted and now you're homeless. Okay. You could make it inexpensively over there. Okay. You can travel light, don't bring a large amount of clothes, or you know, I don't know. I'm just telling you, I did some research on this Could you live cheap in the Philippines also? Yeah, yeah, you could. Um, they're gonna hustle you over there. Thailand is nasty to foreigners, so I wouldn't go to that one. Vietnam isn't bad at all, but it's more expensive. Cambodia is your sleeper out of all of this. Now, are there other places you could go where it's going to be cheap? Probably, like, you know, get a place in Ukraine is probably inexpensive, but that's idiot behavior. Okay, so you know, all the nations except Israel are going to be destroyed soon. So you're not going to find a place that's not going to be destroyed because it says he's going to destroy all the nations he scattered the Israelites into, and then I believe it's Amos 9:9 says they were scattered into all the nations. So where are you going to go? What about Africa? I imagine there's parts of Africa where it's cheap, but I don't think it's going to be safe, and I don't know how you're going to fit in. And I don't know much about it. I know some people in Israel that tried going to Africa to check it out, and they came back. They had no intention of bringing the family there to see how the family liked it. They were done. They they came, they saw, they went home. They're not going back. uh, so I don't know. You know, South Africa used to be a place that you could go, but you're going back 20, 30 years, you know, no more. Yeah. The crimes, the corruption. India, yeah, you could get a cheap place in India, but I don't know. I don't know much about it. I'll research that one. You could probably go to India cheap. Um, yeah, but there's a lot of corruption with the government, so that could be trouble. That could be trouble. Um, what about South America? My personal opinion is everything from Mexico south to Antarctica, stay away. I don't think you'll ever be received. I don't care if mom and dad spoke Spanish and you're fluent. You don't know the culture, and you're not going to be fluent the same way as those that live in the country are fluent, and you're going to be picked on. I've seen it. Okay, I know what happens. You get picked. I wouldn't go to any of these countries. I would stay away from them. I don't think they're livable. They're dangerous. The corruption is insane. The drugs are insane. The culture is bad. I wouldn't go there at all. I would not go to any of them. Okay, none. Taiwan. Well, there's a threat from China with Taiwan, but I don't think Taiwan's very cheap to live. Uh, Neither would Japan or South Korea be good places to live either. Very expensive, and I would avoid those. What about living in places like Puerto Rico and U.S. Virgin Islands? I lived into those. They're dangerous places. If you like, you know, carrying a machete and a 45 and wearing a bulletproof vest, you'd be okay there, you know. Then you'd be okay. Until you kill one of the bums and they know where you live and they come back and burn you in your house or something like that. The crime is insane. It's no place to live. You can't live there. You'll be victimized. There's no place. What about the Caribbean islands? They don't want you, and they'll take advantage of you, and you'll have trouble. You See, you'll do things in a country like the Caribbean plus 15 or 20 other countries that aren't in the Caribbean. You'll hire a maid. Because you get the idea that you could have a maid come and clean the house every day. So you'll hire a maid. She'll cook meals for you. She'll do the shopping. She'll go to the store and schlep the groceries back for you. She'll wash the floor. She'll wash the door. She'll wash the car, maybe, whatever you need, right? And then she's going to eventually file a labor claim on you. And it's going to cost you money. And what are the chances of that happening? 75 to 95%, depending on how you treat her and all that stuff. Why? Well, see, if she's working for a family in the Caribbean island that lived there their whole life, she sees herself as working for them, where she can work for them for 20, 30, 40 years and then retire and they'll take care of her and everything else. But if you're just a stranger there, new to the area, and you're not one of them in the Caribbean, they figure that you're never going to give them a long-term job, so they'll work for you for a while, and then they may leave you alone until the job comes to an end and then file against you, but sooner or later they'll file against you. It's not going to break your bank, but you're going to have to pay some money. That's all. It's not going to be that big a deal. But it's annoying. And the next one will do it to you, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. They don't like you, and you can go there and they'll take advantage of you. That's pretty much, you're going to see that from Mexico to Antarctica and the Caribbean states. I don't think there's any Caribbean island state that's going to be nice to you. So there's not that many places that you could go where it's going to be, cheap to live. If you are contemplating Central South America cheap to live, you're going to have to move in with the locals, and what will happen is you'll take a trip to go home or something like that, and you'll come back and there'll be a 4 foot by 3 foot hole in your wall, and all your furniture will be gone, and you'll see the guy across the street sitting on your sofa, and he'll say, "That's not your sofa, that's my sofa." Am I exaggerating? Maybe a little, but not that much. You don't want to even think about going to these countries. All of them. They're just not going to work out for you. Okay. They're just not nice places, And you hear people, they say, "Oh, I love these people. I love going there. I love Ethiopia." What's that one? I don't remember all of them. Some of the equator countries, not Ethiopia, Ecuador. I love Ecuador. Yeah, but the people in Ecuador don't love you. In Asia, there's a few places, like I told you, The Philippines, I don't know. You're living on islands, yeah, you could find yourself a place where it's cheap. Like if you go back to Cambodia, you could have a man and a wife could go out and have a nice meal. This is today, have a nice meal with a couple of, drinks, maybe sodas or beers or wine, whatever you want, and with the tip and with the tuk-tuk to go there and come home, everything all in, a really good meal, $10. You see, that's the difference in the lifestyle. What's that going to cost you in America? $125. You think, what would it cost you in Israel? Probably at least $75, $85 or $100. I don't know. It'd be close. It's ridiculous, things are just too expensive. So right now, I guess the sleeper, if you needed to, and you weren't making it, you'd be able to probably look at Cambodia. But you got to ask the Lord, because I can't tell you guys to leave, what to do. I know the cost of living in this country is crazy. It's horrible. And this piece of garbage, Netanyahu, never even talks about reducing it. He doesn't care. So it's very, very hard living here. It really is. If you really were gonna budget maybe $1,500 to $1,800 a month, you'd find yourself some sort of a place to live in a smaller city, probably maybe a little apartment house or part of a private house where they take a private house and they bust it into 3 apartments or something. So you could probably find something like that, okay, for $1,500, $1,700. That would be nice, and it might have a few pieces of furniture, but you'd have to furnish it yourself. And that would cost you money. And it's not friendly to foreigners because they don't want you staying here. They want you being a tourist here. 90 days is more than enough time to see everything in Israel. You could see everything in Israel you'd want in probably 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, maybe less, depending how you want to run around. So, you don't have to see every city in Israel. I mean, the Mediterranean beaches are the same. The Dead Sea's the Dead Sea, the Galilee's the Galilee. Jerusalem is Jerusalem, and Tel Aviv, I don't know what you're going to see in Tel Aviv that's going to be so interesting, but you could do Tel Aviv, you could do Eilat, you could go to Haifa, but again, I don't know what's so fascinating about Haifa, unless you just want to see it. It has views very similar to San Francisco. It looks a lot like San Francisco. The views. I've lived in San Francisco, and I've been in Haifa plenty. And you're up high and you're looking down. It reminds me of that tower. I don't remember what you call it anymore. I haven't been in San Francisco. When was the last time I was there? It was the 90s. So I can't remember I don't remember the Coit Tower. That's it, Coit Tower. You look down and it's that type of view from Coit Tower. Haifa is very crowded. Haifa, the streets are tough to navigate, and the traffic. It's a lot of places in Israel, the traffic is very stressful. And the people, to be honest with you, are very nasty, aggressive drivers. And it's not that much fun. And they eliminated many of their traffic lights, and they have traffic circles. And people are supposed to only enter the traffic circle when there's a clear path, and they don't. They just try to scoot in front of you. It's not nice. Driving here is rugged. They generally are not out giving people driving tickets except in the bigger cities. They do it over there. Like out here in my little village, I don't know what you'd have to do to get a driving ticket. I don't know, you'd have to come up with some real winner. The rich kids, there's a hospital near here, and the doctors make good money in Israel, and their children tend to be what I would call juvenile delinquents, and the parents buy them 4x4s and stuff, and they ride around starting Friday and on Saturday too, and they ride around like hot rodding through the streets without mufflers on the things, and I never see the police do anything to them. So people have gone to China to live, expats. I think that's not a good one at all. China is a very nasty government. It's evil, it's dictator, and it's cheap to live there. But there's also a lot of millionaires there too, because these guys learn how to make money. They make factories and they manufacture stuff. They actually make things, okay? And they get a lot of money. But you could live cheap in China, I suppose. But I would never go there. I wouldn't do it. It's really a dangerous. It's like, hey, let's go to Ukraine. It's cheap to live there. I mean, yeah, I mean, you could get a big baseball glove and catch the drones when they come to blow your house up. You know, what are you going to do there? You know, you can't go live there. Russia's another place that I wouldn't go live in because you got a bad, evil country. Some of the Scandinavian European countries could be nice. The people are nice, but you're going to need $5,000-6,000 a month to make it over there. You're not going to remember. It's going to be like here. Gas is $8-9 a gallon, and they're not going to have tuk-tuks because tuk-tuks don't pass the safety inspections. You're going to have to get in an expensive taxi. You don't want that. So I don't know if I helped anybody with that. If anybody wants to come to Israel, let me know and contact me. I'll try to walk you through how to do it. But there's not a sense of permanency here. So you might be able to stay here 3 months, get another 3 months, and then getting a third 3 months would be very, very slim chance. I would say you probably need to go find another country to live in for probably, to be safe, 3 or 4 weeks, and then come back here. And they might figure, well, you're gone 3 or 4 weeks, they'll start it over again for you, maybe. There are people that live here that will stay here a month, right? And then they'll go someplace for 2 weeks, and they'll come back stay another month or 6 weeks, and go someplace for 2 or 3 weeks and come back again. That is easy to get away with. They're not going to care. You're coming and going, and they may question you to see what your motive is and what's going on. But probably not going to get too excited about it. So this one's a really hard one to live in, really is. There are people that, I'll tell you this, I don't suggest it. There are people that live in Jordan. Can you live in Jordan on $1,500 to $2,000 a month? Probably pretty okay. You wouldn't have much trouble. And why do they stay close to Israel? Because they feel that when the time comes, they could just about take a bicycle and ride into it. They could, in a lot of cases, just walk or ride into Israel. And they can't stay here because they can't prove any Jewish heritage, so they are waiting in Jordan, Ammon, up northern Jordan, not Moab, which would be lower or middle Jordan. Do I advocate that? I advocate asking the Lord about that. I wouldn't suggest you do it. It's not a safe situation at all. Iran is attacking them. They have a lot of radical Muslims in there that want to make war with Israel, and they're not going to like you. And it's a Muslim country, a Muslim majority country with the mosques and all that other stuff. There are a lot of tame Muslims over there that are not nuts and wanting to go kill everybody, but I'd say you got to be very careful. I wouldn't do it. I don't suggest it. What about other places? Well, you can't live in Syria. You can't live in Iraq. You can't really live in Lebanon. You could travel to Lebanon. And you could probably rent an apartment in Lebanon inexpensively, and Lebanon is not a Muslim majority country, and you could probably live relatively cheap there, 1,500 probably. It's a dangerous idea because the country's at war with Israel, but it's a thought. What about Turkey? I wouldn't go live in Turkey. Turkey's got a lunatic dictator, Erdogan, and it's a Muslim majority country. If you want to go to Europe and live someplace cheap and nice, Poland is that, although they're not super friendly towards foreigners. They're not that spiteful of you either. You could maybe get along okay over there. The food is superb and cheap. Although as of late, maybe it's getting expensive. I don't know. Poland could get hit by Russia, but so far it's never happened. Romania is another one. Not dangerous, cheap, nothing to do there though. They got museums. I've been there. If you want to go to museums, I mean, that might keep you busy for a week. Going to the opera or anything like that, or plays, they have all that. It's in Romanian language, so you can forget about that, unless you speak Romanian. I mean, you're going to have communication problems. There's not that many English speakers there. The food's pretty good. It tastes like Russian food. It's reasonably safe over there. The houses are reasonably run down and dumpy. You're not going to like them, but you can get by. It's just, there's nothing to do. That's the bottom line. There's nothing there. It's just not fun. It's not horrible, but it's not fun. There's nothing going on over there. So I don't think it's a great deal. I don't think it is. Okay, so trying to think of other things. I really never explored Africa. There's this place that's, you go by South Africa and then over to the left and up, Narimbi or something like that. That could be a fun place to live, but what are you going to do there? I mean, you could travel Africa and go look at the game preserves and go look at the ports and the beaches and stuff. You probably could have a decent time in Africa running around. You'd have to pick the right country, though. I don't know how to do that. There probably is 2 or 3 countries that are good there. Now, some of Africa is Israel. So remember, it says from the Nile to the Euphrates, or it really says Euphrates to the Nile. So parts of Egypt to the right or the east of the Nile is Israel. parts of Uganda and Kenya to the east is Israel. Now, Kenya is very Israel friendly. So a lot of Israelis live and work there. The problem with Kenya is you're talking a pretty expensive place to live. So that's like if you got 4,000 or 5,000 a month, you know, you might be able to do okay there. But 3,000, you probably barely get by. You know, it's expensive, and you're not going to go live in some village out in the middle of nowhere. They're not, you know, what are you going to do there? You know, it's not going to work. Uganda, they'll fight for Israel. I mean, you could go to Uganda, but I don't know what you would do there. Oh, I got a call from potential fraud. Let's see. Yeah, yeah. You have English? I was talking to AI. Okay. It was a recording. I don't know what it was talking about, but yeah. So I don't know. I don't know about Africa. I don't really. I'll look into it. I don't know if you could, but you got to check with the Lord on all of these things. You really got to. You can't just go by that. But I've heard too many stories about people getting homeless recently, and there is such a thing as the working poor, you know. But again, here's the problem: if you got to work and you go to these countries, you're probably, you know, unless you've got some really unusual skill set, you're not going to get work. So it's really for somebody that has savings or somebody that's on some sort of pension or disability or something like that. That's what it's good for. Also, getting these 1-year visas generally are going to require showing you have income. Generally, they want $1,000 a month, usually about that. Some places might be a little less, but most of the countries, I think, are going to want about $1,000 a month. You have to show them. So you could tell them about your Social Security or your disability or something like that, and that'll take care of it. Or if you have a private pension, that'll take care of it. You work for a company, you know. See, the people that you have a married couple and they both have Social Security and they both have an additional private pension, they're likely making it, okay? Because they're probably up at, you know, 6, 7, 8,000 a month, and they're doing okay. They're going and taking vacations, and they're buying cars, and they're not suffering, okay? Especially if they paid their house off, then they're actually having fun. So even if you were dealing with two people that worked and didn't have private pension, just had Social Security, they might still be getting, you know, 6, 7,000 a month, and they could handle it, you know, if they paid the house off or they had a reasonable apartment or something like that. So it's the one that's Social Security or disability or military disability or something, or military retirement, and they're not an officer, so they're not getting a lot. They're the ones that are going to have the problem. And if they go live in a place like Cambodia, they don't have to keep working into their 70s, and they can relax and the rent gets paid. But you got to ask the Lord, because all these countries are going to go away. So, okay. So, let's see if we got any prayer requests or anything going on in the live stream. I don't think so. right, I'll get us a prayer going. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray for me and my wife, all the true believers, and our households, that we would have your peace, safety, protection, joy, calm, rest, and shalom peace. I pray that we would have your strength, stamina, and endurance, and we would have your healing and recuperative power flowing through us and our animals and pets, healing us as needed. And I pray for us and our animals and pets to be safe, secure, happy, healthy, and whole. And please pray for the mommy dog that her health keeps up. She's doing pretty good. Pray that she stays healthy. Pray that she doesn't get diarrhea. And pray for Beulah dog. She's been barfing again. I don't know. She's eating grass or something. I don't know. Please pray for her too. And also pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And I pray that those of us that need work find work, that are believers, that follow us, those believers that need work find work, they get it, good work. Those that need a place to live get a good place to live. And those that need clients and customers get the clients and customers, and that we all have adequate finances and then some. And I pray all this to you, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with this, even if it's on the video, not the live stream. Don't worry about it. You can agree if you're a believer. Okay, now we'll do it a little different. The spiritual warfare portion. Okay, so here we go. It would be a little different. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray for me and my wife, all the true believers in our households and families, that if any of these people has an unclean spirit in them, it's loosed out of them immediately, never to return again. And if there's any evil spiritual warfare done by unclean spirits, or people serving unclean spirits directed at any of these people, it's null and void for all time, no value, no effect forever, shall never come back again, or even in a similar way come back again for all time. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And I hope you got something out of this. And if anybody's, wants to ask my advice about coming to Israel or other countries, I'll try to help if I can. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out.